Hi guys, it's Mark Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi, also known as Mark Zicree of Space Command. And we're busy at work on Ripple Effect, the episode we've been doing entirely during the pandemic with amazing stars, Barbara Bain, Armin Shimmerman, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Mira Furlan, Bill Mumy, Bob Picardo, on and on. It's just going to be terrific. It's a 2-hour episode, and we're having a Space Command convention live online on Mr. Sci-Fi right here, June 28th, all day long. It's going to be amazing, so don't miss it. Absolutely tell your friends, spread the word. And additionally, we're working on finishing episode 2. We're in post on that, doing visual effects, ramping up to shoot the 4th hour. I mean, this is not including the 2 hours of Ripple Effect. On and on, tons of stuff. And meantime, I've also been redoing one of the walls of my place, putting new cool things on it. It's the author's wall. It's got signed items by Gene Roddenberry and Truman Capote and Kurt Vonnegut and on and on and on and on. And so I'll show that wall to you soon, but I'll show a few things I'm going to be putting on that wall that you might find interesting. This is a reproduction of a painting that Ray Bradbury did, the Halloween tree. And Ray painted that, and he, of course, signed it to me. You can see Mark, Ray Bradbury. And this, I'll be framing that. And then this is a signed moon, glow-in-the-dark moon, signed by Buzz Aldrin, and I've met him as well. So I'll be framing that with a photo of him on the moon and a photo of him with me. And then another thing I'll be putting up is one of my favorite books is Canticle for Leibowitz, which takes place after nuclear war. This is the first edition of it, by the way. And years ago, in the 70s, when I was at a science fiction convention, one of the key things in Canticle for Leibowitz is they're trying to have this long-dead guy named Leibowitz made a saint. And one of the things they found was this transistor diagram that he had drawn, and one of the monks in this monastery does this highly detailed illuminated manuscript of this transistor diagram. And of course, because civilization has slid back into the Dark Ages, after this nuclear war, they have no idea what a transistor diagram is. So I was at a convention in 1979, and there was a fan who did this. I don't know if you can see it. There we go. It's the illuminated transistor diagram, exactly as in Canticle for Leibowitz. And so I'm going to frame that and put it up. I think that's so terrific. So cool stuff. So beyond that, if you can donate to our Patreon account, subscribe to Mr. Sci-Fi. We're going to be having another crowdfunding campaign soon to raise more money to get the first 4 hours that we've shot, done. And we've shot 3 hours, about to shoot the 4th hour, not including the 2 hours of Ripple Effect. So meantime, we're moving forward on all fronts. And we have the radio play done. Which is the prequel. We're working on the graphic novel. Tons of Space Command merchandise is going to be available, but you can buy some of it down here right now. And but beyond that, the subject I wanted to talk about in this Mr. Sci-Fi video is Star Trek dead? Because I was recently interviewed on a podcast by the science advisor on the new Star Trek series that are coming down the pike, and it's got me thinking about Star Trek because this is a hotly debated subject. And here's my thought. Obviously, I was enormously inspired by Star Trek when the original one aired when I was 10. Many people of the one generation down were similarly inspired by Star Trek The Next Generation. Deep Space Nine did some great episodes, including Far Beyond the Stars, which is the story that I came up with, that deals very much with Black Lives Matter 20 years before that movement existed. And if you watch that episode now, you'll be astonished at how prescient it is and how important it is. And but with the recent ones like Star Trek Discovery and Picard and JJ's Star Trek movies, there's a question of, is this Star Trek, first of all? Secondly, is Star Trek dead in terms of what Star Trek once meant and once was? And is there hope for Star Trek? Well, first of all, just checking with my opinion of Star Trek Discovery, I think it's got a very good cast and very good production design, but I think the first 2 seasons, the stories have been extremely, I was going to say nutty. That's not quite accurate, but definitely they're convoluted and challenging and so forth. Picard I thought was interesting, but again, problematical in many ways. A lot of the characters they introduced were not memorable the way that previous versions of Star Trek had so many memorable characters. But it was great to see 7 of 9. And but the question of, is Star Trek dead? The answer is no. Because what Star Trek stood for, which I always thought it stood for compassion, it stood for hope, it stood for a future that we can create that's worth living in. First of all, this is what Space Command, the show I'm creating, is very much about. And I think, and so, and I've cast many actors from Star Trek in Space Command, but also that message has had a ripple effect of inspiring people over the last 50, 60 years. And so, so that continues. And people who go back to Star Trek The Next Generation or go back to the original Star Trek can be, motivated, anew. And same with Twilight Zone. So the great part about the centuries that we live in, the 20th and the 21st, is that for the first time in human history, we have art forms with people talking and acting and performing, and that you can revisit, and it's exactly the same as when you first saw it. Casablanca is the same, the African Queen, etc. And that's true of Star Trek. And so those remain with all of their potential for doing good, but also the new Star Trek series are trying to stand for something, but they ring very hollow. They ring very hollow. You just get a feeling that either the writers are incapable of communicating something meaningful, or it's just getting lost in the translation. And I still have hope for it. I mean, when I talked to the science advisor on Star Trek, I said, hey, if they're looking for writers, put in a word, because much as I love what I'm doing, it would be it's like looking at a beautiful car that's not running well. I'm talking about Star Trek, and you just want to get under the hood and fix it, and I would love to do that, but not my decision. So, so for those of you who think that Star Trek has just been driven into the ground, take heart, because all it takes is one, showrunner, the right person, the right place at the right time to fix it. Michael Piller did that with Star Trek The Next Generation. The first season was very funky, and then Piller came aboard and started hiring the right people, and the show found itself very powerfully. So I have hope for Star Trek. I don't think it's dead. And I think just like Hamlet, just like Sherlock Holmes, just like Tarzan, just like all these immortal characters that you see, new iterations of Hamlet, for one, there's always a chance of there being a good one or even a great one. So that's about it for now. Definitely will be posting a lot in terms of Space Command and Sweet Haven, the show I'm creating with Rockney O'Bannon, and many, many other things. So if you haven't subscribed to Mr. Sci-Fi, please do. And if you can send, $5 or $10 or $20 or $100 my way via Patreon, that helps make these videos and make what we're making. And that's about it for now. So until next time, guys, see you soon, and thanks for everything. Bye.